as it goes or as it pertains to the rehab, what exactly does that look like for a quad strain?
Injury expert breaks down Caitlin Clark's quad injury and talks about recovery. And without Caitlin Clark, the Fever must avoid spiraling. Here are 3 pieces of advice. The Indiana Fever entered the 2025 season with championship hopes, but measured expectations to start, given the significant personnel turnover from 2024. The process of integrating all of those moving parts, 6 new players and a new coaching staff, was further complicated with Caitlin Clark's injury just 4 games into the season. Even with an abundance of talent, 4 multi-time All-Stars, still active for the Fever, Wednesday's 83-77 loss to the Washington Mystics raises questions about Indiana's ability to stay afloat during Clark's absence. The Fever announced Monday that Clark will miss a minimum of 2 weeks with a left quad injury, a stretch that includes games against the Connecticut Sun and rematches against the Mystics and Chicago Sky. The Sun and Sky are still winless, but the Mystics rematch should be challenging. And if Clark's injury lingers, Atlanta and New York await the Fever without her. No matter who we play, I think getting punched in the mouth early is kind of humbling because it shows where you need to be, Fever guard Kelsey Mitchell said after Wednesday's loss. Despite the benefit of Clark's injury occurring so early in the season, the Fever, 2-3, need to improve without their MVP candidate in the lineup before they lose too much ground. Here are 3 areas where they can concentrate. 1. Get Aaliyah Boston more involved. Clark and Boston formed the WNBA's most dynamic pick-and-roll duo last season. Clark assisted Boston more than any other pair connected in the league, 105 dimes, which doesn't account for all of the offense Boston generated out of the short roll when Clark was trapped by the defense beyond the 3-point line. Boston has become adept at reading defenses from the middle of the floor and generating shots for teammates with additional screens and handoffs. That's why it was confusing to see how limited Boston's touches were against Washington. The Fever didn't get her the ball in the half court enough as a facilitator, but they also didn't use her enough as a screener, despite her effectiveness. On the first half-court possession of the game, Boston ran a handoff with Sydney Colson on the wing, springing her for a clean jumper at the free throw line. She didn't touch the ball the next 4 possessions. When Boston got the ball on the perimeter midway through the first quarter, she threw a dart to a cutting Colson on the baseline, who then found Lexi Hull in the corner for a 3-pointer. Boston had another difficult cross-court pass from the post to Colson in the opposite corner, and Indiana eventually scored on an offensive rebound. Boston finished 4 of 5 from the field and tied with a team-high 4 assists, but the Fever needed more from her. Certainly, she gets so many of her touches in the 2-man game with Caitlin on the floor, and it looks different now, Coach Stephanie White said. It's a point of contention to get her touches on the block as much as in the 2-man.
Offense here by Washington, really great gap discipline right there at the elbows. Boston got inside, got that to go over Octave. And also,
they played really good defense on her, but that doesn't mean she can't come set screens, Fever guard Sophie Cunningham added. It doesn't mean we can't find her on the opposite side, swinging the ball. The Mystics also made Boston work defensively, especially against Shakira Austin in isolation. Boston's 5 fouls weren't the reason she was uninvolved, but opponents will continue to try to get her in foul trouble to disrupt Indiana's offense. Pick up the slack on defense. In their last 3 games, excluding the opening day blowout against Chicago, the Fever conceded 86 points per game. That trend continued with 83 against Washington, despite the Mystics coming in with the league's 4th worst defensive rating. Indiana hoped that replacing Clark with Colson at the point of attack would at least improve the defense, even if the offense lagged, but that wasn't the case Wednesday. The Fever suffered multiple defensive breakdowns, with defenders miscommunicating on pick-and-roll coverages, not knowing if they were supposed to be in the gaps or off-ball, or failing to box out. Whatever the scheme was, it was impossible to tell if it would have worked against Washington because Indiana wasn't executing. 2 major sore spots on that end were fouls and transition defense. The Fever committed 26 personal fouls, more than their average of 22, which is 3rd worst in the WNBA. White noted that they kept bailing the Mystics out of tough shots by hacking them at the end of the play. Indiana also struggled to match up in transition, a problem compounded by its 16 turnovers. White was especially peeved by Lucy Olson's 3-pointer late in the 3rd quarter when the Fever technically had enough players tracking back, but none closed out to Olsen on the perimeter.
But she is on her feet. Quickly back the other way. Olsen, 3 in transition. Got it. And Stephanie White wants a timeout. She's looking at the officials, wondering where the call was on the
19.6 rebounds and 9 assists for the Fever so far this season, her second in the league.
Sykes works off of Austin, trying to get her on the seal with Boston.
Although Washington was credited with only 10 transition points, those fast break possessions led to offensive rebounds and additional scores, like in the first half, when Sonia Citron missed a three-pointer, but Stephanie Dolson collected the board and found a trailing Kiki Iriafin for a layup. Indiana can't afford those breakdowns, especially when the Fever managed no fast break points of their own. 3. When the hustle battles, Indiana stressed the importance of its depth leading into Wednesday's game. But without a central operating force on offense, especially when Boston wasn't used that way, the Fever's individual creators were mostly inefficient. Mitchell said post-game she couldn't hit a rock in the ocean, but it didn't help that most of her jumpers came in isolation as opposed to off the catch or off screens. Hull, whose cuts often result in layups thanks to Clark's pinpoint passing, had only one shot attempt in the paint. Natasha Howard at least made half of her shots, 5 of 10, but turned over the ball 5 times, mostly while trying to maneuver to the basket. After starting Colson, the Fever experimented with Hull and Cunningham as the primary initiator. Hull was decent at finding looks, especially for Mitchell, but having her on the ball eliminated the movement and chaos she generally creates off it. Cunningham couldn't really stand up to the ball pressure and committed an offensive foul on Jade Melbourne in the second quarter as she tried to clear out space to dribble. Indiana doesn't have any other natural point guards other than Clark. Colson is technically a 1, but played that position sporadically in her last 3 seasons in Las Vegas due to their glut of ball handlers. The Fever chose to keep 2 extra bigs on their roster. Neither Brianna Turner nor Michaela Timpson played before garbage time, instead of another guard, a decision that was odd at the time and has aged poorly. That's a structural issue that can't be fixed. For now, Indiana has to win the hustle categories. It was out-rebounded and lost points in the paint and in transition against Washington. In the absence of elite offensive creation, the Fever have to outwork opponents, a trait that will benefit them when Clark comes back. Injury expert breaks down Caitlin Clark's quad injury and talks about recovery.
As it goes, or as it pertains to the rehab, what exactly does that look like for a quad strain?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned, we have to control the swelling around the tear. Like hamstring tears, the quad tear is usually small, but the muscle around this tear tightens up, which creates a much larger injury field or size of the field. So basically, it's complete rest and lots of various modalities to control that inflammation, which includes ultrasound, shockwave therapy, electrical stimulation, lots of compression devices, lots of contrast, cold hot tubs, lots of things to control that inflammation. This is really a standard shut it down, rest, ice, compression, elevation, modalities, controlled movement, and she will do quite well. But if you do rush it, you can accelerate bleeding and have a much longer term.
The WNBA no longer being a chill, quiet place where you could bring your laptop and get a little work done.
This is from Brittany. Every time we play her, there's this commotion, like this loud rumbling from the stands. Turns out it's people, thousands of them, just sitting there, watching on purpose. It's very disruptive. It's called a freaking game that they pay you money to play. Don't play the game. It's very disruptive. It continues. Brittany Griner voiced frustration in a recent interview, claiming that Caitlin Clark is ruining what used to make the WNBA great. Wait for this.
Empty stands?
Tom, let me just...
Go ahead, I'm so mad.
WNBA games used to be a chill, quiet place. You could bring your laptop and relax, maybe even get a little work done. But now, it's like there's a large gathering of people watching us from the stands. Some of them are yelling crazy shit about what they're seeing, putting unfair pressure on us to score like we're there for their entertainment. And that's pretty gross.
Well,
Are you
I act like this is
okay,
not
Rob, can you verify that this is what she said on the mom and pop WNBA model? that she's sick of the and then she says the whole thing is toxic. I saw a guy with his daughter in the crowd, both of them yelling, couldn't hear what they were saying exactly, but it was either about my performance or some light racism. Definitely one of the two. Give me a flipping break.
Rachel Demita, don't give up on the Fever.
Now, I'm also seeing a lot of fans saying that they are just not going to watch, they're not going to go to the games, they're going to sell their tickets because Caitlin isn't playing. And I would urge you guys to not do that. I had such a fun time watching this Indiana Fever team without Caitlin. Like, there was never a thought in my mind that I wasn't going to go just because she wasn't playing. And I get it. Sometimes those tickets are so expensive. It's the only time of the year that you could go. But I would say if you are an Indiana Fever fan, get out there to the game. Watch how this team plays without her. It was so exciting to watch. You'll get a little bit of a feel of how the offense runs without her, what players step up. Like we saw in the game that I went to, Sophie Cunningham stepped up big for the team and was really that spark. She scored a lot of points. Lexi got going. DB played well. Like, there are so many things to enjoy about this team and about the WNBA in general. So I would definitely urge you guys to not give up your tickets. Like, go attend the game, watch the game. If after that, if you see the team or the WNBA and you don't like it and you're like, yeah, I'm done, then fine, so be it.